Hey, Carlos here. I saw this tweet by Adam Lytle talking about that if you want to grow your app, you should focus in one or two metrics at a time. And the metric that he was focusing was on session per active device. By the end of this video, I'm going to teach you exactly how you can increase your session per active device, show you the psychology behind it, but more importantly, how you can do that ethically, which is extremely important for this in particular. Now, what is a session per active device? Basically, what Apple is doing, or any other company, if that matters, is basically trying to measure how sticky or addictive, if you want to use another word, your app is. But why is that important? If you have, for example, 1,000 users and each user has one session, that's 1,000 sessions. If on 1,000 users, if you have 3 sessions per user, that's 3,000 sessions, right? So basically what that means is more sessions equals a higher retention and equals a less churn that on its own, it does something very interesting. That is, it saves on cost per acquisition, which is basically what you want. But more important is if you have a better retention and less churn, then you're giving the user, assuming that your app is actually good and it's doing that, you're giving the user what the user actually wants, which is some sort of transformation by using your app, right? So why am I showing you this? My own apps, for example, one of them has a 10.7, and you can see the increase of 5.16% after the last update that I had, which is basically allowing users to have a weather notification for their plants. And the other one, the new app that I basically built, is at 18. Now, if you go to this post, you're going to see actually that I had a comment there for Adam talking about like, oh, I don't know if this is affected by the number of downloads, but now this app has increased in downloads, and I can actually say that metric is actually increasing, and people find more useful the more they actually use the app. Now, there are a couple of other psychologies behind like what is in the app. The app itself is very daily driven. For both of them, they are very daily driven, but there are a few mechanics that basically I've implemented that helps on retaining that user. And I'm going to basically show you that in here. When people talk about psychology of an app, one of the things that they usually talk about is Duolingo and streaks. We see these like often and countless of times. Most YouTube videos that I see, they just talk about, oh, you should add a streak or you should add a leaderboard to your app. Even if it doesn't make sense for you to do it, is basically what people usually say, oh, that streak is what's going to make the person come back, which is not always the case. So what I want basically to go in this video is explain to you the psychology behind it and how you can leverage that psychology to actually create something that is addicting but good. Now, usually when you use the word addicting, people usually go into the like extreme side of the spectrum of being addiction is bad. That is not always the case. The way that you can think about addiction in this case, for example, is how easy can you remove the friction of the user completing something while making it feeling good to that user, right? Learning Spanish, Duolingo, it is a task that is boring, right? So how can we make a friction way of that person actually feel good for them to learn Spanish, which is giving them a reward, which is if you do this, right, you learn Spanish, which is your end goal and what you actually want. So now there is like other things that if you don't use these carefully, then it can lead into other things. Like, for example, opening the app just for using the streak, not really learning Spanish. So you need to have a good balance on how you do that. So before we actually go in, I want to explain how does this actually works. Our brain, it's basically a predictable machine, right? That's basically literally what our brain is. So when we get a reward, our brain basically releases dopamine. But the interesting part about dopamine is that dopamine is not a pleasure chemical. It's more of an anticipation chemical. What I mean by that is that our brain releases more dopamine when we are anticipating something, right? Expecting a reward than when we actually get it. That's why, for example, checking your phone is often more exciting than actually reading the notification. And this is basically when a habit is formed. Your brain basically learns the pattern that if I do X at a Y time, I get a Z reward, and then it starts releasing dopamine before that, and then like before it even gets the reward, right? And then when that dopamine hits is basically when it pulls you back to actually keep doing that task. So one of the guys that basically studied these a lot is a guy called B.F. Skinner. I don't know how to pronounce. He's like, I think that his second name is Frederick. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. It's a weird name. But that aside, he studied something that it's often called the Skinner box experiment. Now, in the Skinner box experiment, it's very interesting because he actually tested 4 different things, if I'm not mistaken. It could be more. But basically, they all had the same premise, which is you press a button to either receive a reward or to avoid punishment, right? So the interesting thing about this experiment is that he tested one that was a fixed ratio. So a fixed ratio is basically a reward on every action. So every time that you press the button, you get something, right? So an example of that in the real world is like punch cards, right? So you buy 10, get 1 free. That's a fixed ratio. You know exactly what you're going to get and when you're going to get it. The other one is a variable ratio. A variable ratio is basically a reward after an unpredictable action. So, for example, in slot machines, in casinos, every time that you pull something, you don't know when you're going to win or if you're going to win. This one is actually proven to be the most addictive and also the most manipulative one of all of the ones that he studied. A interesting fact about this is actually TikTok algorithm and most social medias, they actually use this, right? So on TikTok, what people usually don't realize is when you're scrolling, right, you're basically hitting that slot machine. You don't know when you're going to get a video that you like and a video that's going to hook you into the app. The other one is the one that I usually really, really like because this one, it's more generous. It's less addictive, but is also as effective as a variable schedule reward ratio, right? So this one is called a fixed interval. In a fixed interval is, for example, a reward that is after a set period of time. So for example, a daily login bonus, which is what I'm going to show you in a second. In fact, if you want to click off this video, I already gave you what you need to know. But if you want basically to keep learning how this works and why, then you can just keep watching. So the last one is basically a variable interval. It's a reward that is unpredictable, an unpredictable time. Like, for example, checking an email. You don't know when you check an email when you're going to get something that you like or not, and so on. Right? So the cool thing about this is that this is being used throughout history in multiple different ways. One of them, and I just had these notes here that didn't even show, but yeah, there you go. You can screenshot that if you want. So one cool example that I often like to go over is, I don't know why I did this, but let me do this. It's going to be better. Okay, there you go. So one example that I have in here is Clash of Clans. Right, so if you ever played Clash of Clans, you know that in Clash of Clans, you have basically the core loop of the game. And the core loop of the game is very simple. Is you build something that is going to give you more resources to keep building something that gets you stronger to battle. But one interesting thing that is very interesting about Clash of Clans is that Clash of Clans, they have a basically a fixed interval ratio in multiple different ways. One of these, for example, is the upgrading. Whenever you upgrade something, and you're going to see on how they condition you to actually going back into the app, which is the very first time that you build something is going to take 16 to 15 seconds. That's it. And then it's going to increase by 1 minute, and then by 3 minutes, 5, 10, 15, 30, and so on, right? So as that increases, they basically send you a notification when that building is done. So then you go back into the app, and then you have more things to do that are not just basically to check that the building is done. But basically, the reward here is, hey, you waited for 30 minutes, and now you get these upgrade that is actually better for your village. But they are conditioning you into going back into the app, because every single time that you go into the app, you get basically those rewards. Now, not only in building time, but there is another hook that is interesting to notice, that is in resources. When you go back into the app, what happens in a lot of the cases is that your resources are full, and as they are full, you can click on them to basically get those resources that then can lead you into like going in and doing another upgrade, for example, and that loop basically maintains. So they're basically rewarding you, but in a fixed interval, and it's predictable, and you know what you're going to get. A couple of times, you also get, for example, unpredictable things like loot boxes and so on. Now, a lot of games, they use these mechanics. One of the mechanics that is very interesting, and is the one that I was talking about here, that is like the daily login reward, is this. Right? So when you go, for example, to other games, usually have this, log in for 7 days to flip a card. Then when you log in, you basically get one card. And when you flip it, you can get, for example, a new character. So what this does is it conditions you to basically log in every day to get a new gift. And that gift can be something that if you skip that day, then you lose that streak and you lose that gift. So it is that simple, right? So all you have to do is basically have a daily login bonus. So day 1, they get, for example, coins. Day 2, they get more coins. And then day 7, for example, can be like last day, they can get like a jackpot reward, which is like a massive, like epic hero that you get only if you basically reach those days. The fun fact about this, which is not fun, but it's just psychology at the end of the day, casinos use the same pattern, right? So that's why a lot of casinos, they offer you, for example, free spins every 4 hours. So they basically get you back for you to get rewards and to basically get that loop in your head for you to do that. This pattern is everywhere. Companies spend like not even millions anymore. They spend billions of dollars trying to find different ways on how to implement these hooks into their apps, into like, for example, even ChatGPT is a good example of that. Whenever you're chatting with ChatGPT, you know that you're going to get something, but you don't know what you're going to get, right? Even like as bad as it sounds, I would bet that sometimes they actually have it where the prompt, like the result that they give you is bad on purpose. I'm just like making a conspiracy theory here that like they give you the result bad on purpose. So you basically prompt it again to get that feeling of like, oh, I'm going to get the good one. So like once you understand these principles, you can start to basically look at the world and look basically at these patterns everywhere. Now, how do you implement this? So this is an example of my own app called Versal. This is an app that is like less than a week old, and I'm basically using these rewards. This is a Bible app that basically it has a audio version of the Bible as well as a custom devotional based on how the person is feeling that day. Now those ones, they are behind a paywall. So for the daily reward, what I'm basically giving people, it's a additional audio and also a custom devotional credits. And then as they basically go in and unlock it, they basically get, for example, an exclusive devotional for that day and so on. So how do you basically build this? This is super, super easy to build. So first you want to decide what is it you want to give away. Find something that is meaningful for the person, that it makes sense for them to actually get it. And then like this one, in my case in particular, I wanted to give this one because I already give them 2 free audios and 2 free custom devotionals. I just want the user basically to keep using the premium feel of the app. So that also makes them be like, oh, I already use this. I'm used to using this. So I want to buy it and use it more. Once you basically decide on what you want to do, is you want basically to have it where on day 1 and 3, there are small rewards, or if you want, you can go big like me. And then 4 to 6 is a medium reward, right? And then day 7 is like the big reward. And what you want to do in this case is you want the user to claim every consecutive day. And if they fail that streak, then basically that goes away. There is no way for them to get back again. One other thing that is important when applying something like this is making it visible. So tell the user exactly what they get. And more important, make these frictionless. Like you can see that like here, we only have like a claim button. and that's it. When you claim it, it should be frictionless. And you basically want this to basically work like this. The user opens the app for the first time. Instead of showing them the actual app, what they see is this daily reward on the first time that they open the app. Then you can basically do it. You can choose what you want to do. For example, in my app, and this is the app running on the simulator, like on the first day, I show it as soon as they open the app. So that basically triggers it. Oh, I have like these rewards. But then what I usually do is I show it on the profile. So next time that they go to the app on next day, they get notification, but when they open the app, they don't see like this sheet here. What they're going to see just like this small red icon that then when they open, they can go in and just like claim it, right? That's it. Super frictionless. So what you want to do is have these in a way that is frictionless for the user basically to claim. And actually coding these is very straightforward. It's just basically you track the last login time stamp, and then you compare with the current time, and then you calculate the streak and deliver the reward. That's it. That's basically how you do it. It's super simple. So there is like no reason for you to not do it. Now, your goal with this is to try to make this not manipulative, but actually give the user a reward that is going to be useful for them. It is very hard to balance that, but I also believe that if you are building an app that is worth creating a habit around using that app, is because it's going to probably be for a better good for the end user. So using these techniques is something that basically helps a lot. So yeah, that's basically how you can use a simple psychological trick to increase your session per active device. This is a very important metric because one, you are creating stickiness to your app and allowing people to go in and have like a better app experience. And also on your end, you are decreasing your cost per acquisition. That is extremely important as an app developer. Yeah, I hope this helps, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.